ביקור בזמנים קשים אצל חברים, וכפי שאמרתי בשבוע שעבר בפרלמנט, בבונדסטאג, בזמנים הקשים יש לגרמניה רק מקום אחד, והוא לצידה של ישראל.
Prime Minister, the security of Israel and its citizens is something that Germany defends. This is the principle that we have when we as government and parliament support Israel, and all parties do the same. And it is very important for me to emphasize this here in Israel. German history and the responsibility we have given the history of the Holocaust mean that it is our task to stand up for the security of Israel.
ואנחנו רוצים להתנהג בהתאם כממשלת גרמניה. הפרלמנט הגרמני תמך בגישה הזו וחוצה מפלגות. חשוב מאוד להגיד את זה היום כאן, בזמנים הקשים כל כך בישראל. ההיסטוריה הגרמנית והאחריות שנובעת מההולוקוסט, מהשואה, מחייב אותנו לשמור על קיומה של ישראל ועל ביטחונה של ישראל.
Meine Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, the cruel and bloody attack of Hamas against Israel is condemned by us. The terror against innocent civilians, the killing of innocent people, the murder of babies, abduction of women, men and children, the humiliation of Holocaust survivors, all of that shocks us deeply.
ההתקפה צמאי הדם של טרוריסטים של החמאס, אנחנו מגנים בכל תוקף. הטרור הברוטלי, ההתקפה הברוטלית על אזרחים חפים מפשע, הוצאת להורג של אזרחים, רציחת תינוקות, חטיפת נשים, גברים וילדים, השפלה והצגת ניצולי שואה גורם לדם להקפיא.
It is quite clear. Israel has the right to defend itself against this terror under international law. Every state has the obligation to protect its citizens.
לישראל יש את הזכות מעוגן בחוק הבינלאומי להתגונן ולהילחם בטרור. כל מדינה יש לה את החובה להתגונן ולשמור על אזרחיה.
We feel the awful suffering of all Israelis that have lost parents, children, families in this barbaric attack. We share the sorrow of all those family members who have lost family members that were adopted by Hamas.
של כל הישראלים, של ההורים, של האחים, של הילדים. עקב ההתקפה הפשיטה הברברית, אנשים שאיבדו בעקבותיה את חייהם. אנחנו חולקים את הדאגה של כל אלה, דאגה של קרובי משפחה ליקירים שנחטפו על ידי הטרוריסטים, המחבלים, נקראו מהיום-יום ונחטפו לעזה.
Unter den Verschleppten sind auch Deutsche.
Amongst the abducted persons are Germans. We focus on them and all the other hostages, and we try everything we do to free them.
אנחנו דואגים להם וגם לכל שאר החטופים, ואנחנו מנסים לשחרר אותם בכל תוקף, עם כל הכוח.
Esteemed Prime Minister, my government stands up for this conflict not to escalate. We need to prevent a spillover into the whole region.
הממשלה שלי תפעל בכל הכוח שהסכסוך הזה שלא חל הסלמה של הסכסוך הזה. אנחנו צריכים בכל הכוח למנוע שריפה כוללת.
And I warn every actor, they should not think it's a good idea to intervene into this conflict from the outset. It would be an unforgivable mistake, and this is a message we have spread through many channels to all those. They need to hear that.
לא להשפיע, לא להיכנס לסכסוך הזה מבחוץ. זאת תהיה טעות גדולה ובלתי נסלחת. אנחנו בימים האחרונים העברנו את המסר בערוצים השונים.
Esteemed Prime Minister, Germany and Israel are united by the fact that we are democratic states based on the rule of law. And even in extreme situations, we act on the basis of the law. And that is why we are not we are also taking notice of the human suffering in Gaza, and that is why I have said we need to provide monetary help to the innocent civilians, different from the Hamas that keep humans as human shields. We are also concerned about the civilian population. We want to prevent civilian casualties.
תשתית משותפת. אנחנו שתינו דמוקרטיות, מדינות חוק, וזה קובע את דפוסי ההתנהגות שלנו, שהדפוס ההתנהגות שלנו מושתת על זכויות וחוקים. ולכן אנחנו רוצים גם במצב הנוראי הזה לדאוג למצב ההומניטרי ברצועת עזה. אנחנו לא אדישים כלפי המצב ההומניטרי בעזה, ואנחנו דיברנו על זה, כבוד ראש הממשלה, על דרכים איך להקל את המצב ההומניטרי לאזרחים בעזה.
With Prime Minister Netanyahu, I spoke about the opportunity of better humanitarian access to Gaza, and that is one of the reasons why I'm going to travel to Egypt to talk to President al-Sisi tomorrow. Talk about the situation and humanitarian aspects. The federal government is going to continue its humanitarian commitment to mitigate the suffering of the civilian population.
ההומניטרית לרצועת עזה, וזאת אחת הסיבות מדוע אני אמשיך לטוס למצרים כדי לשוחח עם נשיא מצרים אל-סיסי על המצב ועל היבטים הומניטריים. גרמניה תמשיך לפעול למען השיפור במצב ההומניטרי בעזה כדי להקל על הסבל של האוכלוסייה.
Allow me, at the end of my statement, to make two remarks regarding the situation in Germany. Antisemitism has no place in Germany. The celebration and glorification of violence is inhumane, abhorrent. It is proscribed and will be punished.
ולבסוף תרשו לי עוד הערה אחת לגבי המצב העדכני בגרמניה. לאנטישמיות אין מקום בגרמניה. להלל ולחגוג אלימות זה לא אנושי, זה נפשע וזה אסור, ואנחנו נענש התנהגות כזאת.
Jewish life in Germany is a gift. Jewish institutions are being protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. I appreciate all your statements, including your last reference to protecting the Jewish community. We discussed this in our conversation as well. The question of the safety of civilians is something that is raised by Hamas's actions. Hamas is committing a double war crime. Not only is it targeting and murdering civilians with unprecedented savagery, it's hiding behind civilians, their own civilians. We are calling on the civilians to leave Gaza, go south to safe zones, and Hamas is preventing them, often at gunpoint, from doing so. Hamas wants to keep them there as a human shield and prevent the people from leaving and getting out of harm's way. It's important that the entire world understands this. The responsibility for the civilians who are there, both the abducted people and both the people who are kept there at force, the citizens of our country and the citizens of dozens of countries, and the Palestinian civilians themselves, that responsibility sits squarely on the shoulders of the Hamas war criminals. They're committing a double war crime, attacking civilians, hiding behind civilians as human shields. The entire world should condemn it and should support Israel in its just war. Thank you very much, and thank you, Chancellor. Thank you.
Thank you.
We just saw a press conference there with Olaf Scholz, who is currently visiting Israel with Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu. The German Chancellor has said ahead of this visit that his trip will be a clear sign of German solidarity for Israel. Let's dig into this a little bit more with DW's chief political editor, Michaela Kufner, joining me in the studio. Michaela, hi. We heard Netanyahu there painting a very clear and gruesome picture of Hamas's attacks in Israel, calling it a battle for the future of civilization. I'm curious what you made, though, of German Chancellor Scholz's remarks in this press conference that we just heard.
Yeah, let's just lay out what he said. And first of all, I just want to note that whatever comes next, this is a historic moment, certainly for Germans, but also for the Jewish people, because we just saw the Prime Minister of Israel standing there with the Chancellor of the nation that is responsible for the Holocaust. And we saw the direct reference to the Holocaust. I mean, this is the largest loss of Israeli life since the Holocaust. Very concrete references from Benjamin Netanyahu there, to Babi Yar as well, the mass slaughter of Jews in what is now Ukraine. And the German Chancellor recognizing this and once again conveying the message that Germany has made a very unusual commitment towards Israel, which is Staatsräson, that it's a fundamental principle of the German state to ensure the protection of Israel. Now, what that means in concrete detail, I think it's a bit too early to really understand what that will mean in the end. We know that there has been so far only a request for drones that Germany had leased from Israel. I think it's noteworthy that the German Chancellor reiterated this message. This is rhetoric. This is what we've heard before. We heard this in the German parliament, and he's also very eager to stress that Germany will clamp down. It will use the full force of the law to clamp down on any anti-Semitic demonstrations here in Germany, any potential actions against Jews, because Jews in this country, they are afraid, looking at what happened. Yes. But the clear condemnation of Hamas and a clear responsibility that rests with Hamas for whatever is to come. Yeah. And that is something that is concerning the entire world now.
So this was a hugely symbolic moment, as you say. Has it already been clear, though, in practical terms, what kind of support Germany is going to be offering Israel as Scholz takes this trip to the region?
Well, we have this commitment by Germany and a request to basically for Benjamin Netanyahu to tell Germany whatever he wants, and that Germany will consider this. What we didn't hear from the German Chancellor also when he spoke in Parliament, that Germany will give whatever Israel requests, but that it would whatever is requested would be considered. Now, initially, it looked like it requested ammunition for some of its warships. That request was actually withdrawn, and there are a lot of practical reasons behind that. Israel is very much armed with its own hardware, but also mainly American military hardware. So that is the first reference point. I think there are very practical reasons behind that.
So it wasn't a good fit, is that what you're saying?
Well, that is what I'm being told by military experts,
Yes.
but I'm not a military expert by any means.
Yeah.
But that is not widely expected here. But full political support is expected. And I think we saw in that interaction, there were no questions taken, that also the German Chancellor, who is there to basically show solidarity and reassure an Israeli Prime Minister who clearly you can see under how much pressure he is at this very moment in time to prove that this state can protect its citizens as well, that Germany is firmly at the side of Israel while at the same time maintaining international law. And him basically calling for the protection of civilian life, which, let's translate it into non-political speak, means to at least minimize civilian casualties in the Gaza Strip. More than 1 million citizens of Gaza have been called upon to move to the other end of the country. It is unclear how many lives that will actually cost, simply asking them to move. So there is an underlying tension within this, that Germany wants to maintain its role as a mediator, and we're also seeing the German Chancellor travel on to Egypt to make the case for humanitarian aid to go into Gaza at the same time. So I think we will observe over the coming days and weeks what that commitment of Israeli security being a fundamental principle of German policy means in practical terms, and whether trying to ensure Israeli security might also mean that Germany doesn't always agree completely with what action Israel chooses to take, as we are all awaiting for that ground offensive to start.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us to break that down. That is DW's Chief Political Editor, Michaela Kufner. We really appreciate your time today. Now, Hamas, which the EU, the United States, and some Arab states label as a terrorist group, abducted nearly 200 people during their massacre in Israel. The mother of one French-Israeli hostage has made a desperate plea for her daughter's release.
I didn't know if she's dead or alive until yesterday. All I knew is that she's might be kidnapped. I'm begging the world to bring my baby back home. She only went to a party, to a festival party, to have some fun. And now she's in Gaza.
It's difficult testimony to hear there. I want to bring in DW's senior international correspondent, Fanny Fachar, reporting for us from Tel Aviv. Fanny, Israel is in a difficult position here, isn't it? How can it ensure the safety of hostages that are believed to be being held in Gaza while it is currently bombing the Gaza Strip?
Israel is basically facing a huge dilemma here, because when we are talking about Hamas militants, we're talking about a vast labyrinth of at least an estimated 400-kilometer long tunnel system, like an underground city. The entrances to these tunnels are basically close to schools, close to hospitals, in a very densely populated area. So the goal of Israel, trying to root out Hamas, but also obviously rescue those hostages, an estimated 199 hostages, that's the current number that Israel is working with, is a huge challenge. Nobody knows how that's going to work. If you in fact look back at the history, 2014, the last Gaza war, Israel was not able to root out and eliminate the Hamas militants. So how is it going to work this time? Now, what the U.S. is trying to do is influence Israel, trying to have an impact with regard to how to create safe zones with the help of Israel, but also how to make sure that aid gets into Gaza Strip, because so far nobody's getting out from the Gaza Strip. Pretty much the only possible opening to the world would be the Rafah border crossing with Egypt, but that also remains closed. And as we are speaking, by the hour, people there in Gaza Strip are really very much running out of the very basics. And I'm talking also about the basics in terms of fuel that you need to actually go from the northern part of Gaza Strip to the south, where these safe zones are to be established. But there are no concrete details here, no concrete plans that have been shared. And while all of this is happening, all this diplomacy, of course, that question also remains just when that ground offensive is going to start and how that is going to cause another consequence for all those people who are basically strapped in Gaza Strip.
Yes, lacking food, fuel, and water, and aid agencies desperate to get that in. I want to come back to the issue of the hostages. As we've seen, there are many foreigners as well among the hostages that have been abducted. What role are foreign governments playing in trying to secure their release?
Germany, for example, represented here by German Chancellor Scholz today, who also is urging for the release of, for example, German hostages, but obviously all hostages. What they're trying to do is trying to explore who has most information and contacts with Hamas militants, and this is where actually Qatar plays a significant role. In fact, early on, Qatar has offered the help to someone negotiate. One has to understand that Qatar is basically the main financial backer of Hamas militants, so they do get kind of a leverage here, at least it seems, that if somebody can help release the hostages, then it will probably go through the efforts of Qatar. But that being said, and you may see all the protesters here behind me asking for the release of those hostages, making sure they do not become a collateral damage as a ground offensive is looming. Nobody knows whether the release is going to be possible with or without Qatar. At this point, nobody even knows what the state of those hostages is.
Thank you so much for your reporting. That is DW's Fanny Fattar in Tel Aviv. And that is your news update at this hour. If you want more, there is more news and analysis online at dw.com, or you can follow us on social media at DW News. Thank you so much for watching.